So hello everyone. As I've said, my name is Steven, and I'm currently on a work term with the Ideas Clinic. So I'm in mechanical engineering. I'll be entering my 3A term in the coming winter, and Noura is in environmental engineering. So the wiki has come about because Waterloo Engineering is not only the most difficult engineering program, but uniquely difficult as well. Students are expected to learn their course content and be ready for a real engineering workplace by 1 or 2 terms at the university. In the workplaces they'll inevitably work at, there's vernacular terms, methods, and components they'll all need to be familiar with that they never really are for their first co-op term. The first month of any co-op is spent learning company language, new engineering concepts or terms, components, and any other things that the company requires them to know. The courses that students can take teaches them some of the concepts, but we can't really teach them everything in that short of a time period. We can only give them exposure to it. At the end of the day, the employer expects UW students to have industry knowledge before they come into the workplace, and it isn't really taught to them as much as employers think. Therefore, there's a gap in the learning for what the employer expects UW students to know and what we teach them. The problem is that this lack of knowledge is often detrimental to the student, as when they go in for their interviews, they'll often be asked questions they don't have the knowledge about or weren't prepared for. This is where the wiki comes in. We provide a gateway of learning for students to access this invisible curriculum that they must know so they can prepare adequately for their interviews, no matter the industry. It also acts as a general repository of information for students on work terms or on upper years, such that they have a vetted resource to find out critical information. So I'll kind of give you a quick rundown of how the wiki works in structure. It's similar to Wikipedia. It starts from a single front page, breaks out into, right now, mechanical and civil wikis, and breaks down further into different topics. So standards, fasteners, bridges, actuators, and continues to get more and more specific from there, like a real Wikipedia page. So the wiki comprises tools, components, methods, terms, and standards, to name a few examples. This is all direct technical knowledge, not taught in depth during courses, that can be extremely useful to students when encountering the previously mentioned scenarios. Now, you might have heard me mention standards. So significantly, we also have an entire page dedicated to standards. Standards are an intricate and complicated topic to cover for students, but the wiki provides the information on how to use and navigate a standard, which standards apply to their field or co-ops, and where they can access these standards on an academic or a school term. On the right, you'll see a quick little excerpt of the standards page. It just provides a picture of what a preface will look like in a standard, and it just gives students an idea of what the preface or document changes section looks like on a standard. So I'll quickly run you through some of the specifics of what you can find on the wiki right now. So I'll take over for the mechanical wiki, and then Noura will talk to you about the civil enviro geo wiki. So for the mechanical wiki, currently we have fasteners, gears, actuators, bearings, and sensors for the topics. These topics are relatively filled out, as you'll see in some of the page examples later on in the slide. And they each have varying levels of complexity. So you have things like, what are the types of fasteners? Eventually we'll have fastener loading charts. Right now we have how to read data sheets. We have some catalogs for fasteners. So it's all pertinent information that students will need to know if they encounter any one of these topics. So I'll pass it on to Noura, and she'll talk about the civil enviro and GeoWiki.
So although the civil team joined the group later on in the term, the civil page has grown rapidly. Professor Rama Al-Enzy is also actively involved with the civil team and provides feedback on a weekly basis. We are also in the process of including Professor G. Wayne Broadland, who developed the engineering models website. At the moment, the topics covered on the wiki focus on structural components that are taught in first and second year courses. And these topics include arches, beams, bridges, dams, and retaining walls. The civil team essentially took the same template as the mechanical team and applied it for the topics on the civil page. And each page has content regarding the specific component characteristics, examples of their use in real life, the different types that exist, the history of the components, and materials that are used for their construction. To take the civil page further, we're working on including available building standards. And we also hope that the Civil Wiki can be a tool for students that not only simplifies the immersion into their domain of interest, but also allows students to look at these structures through different lenses.
So just quickly, I just want to give you a rundown of some of the things that will be added in the near future or even further. So very soon we'll have chemical and nano departments on the wiki as well. We'd like to add some non-technical information in collaboration with WattPD. So things like workplace ethics, professionalism, and critical decision making. These are some of the skills that you develop as you go on through your co-op terms, but students coming right out of high school in their first term at Waterloo Engineering may not necessarily have, but they are things they're going to need. There's also important technical information we'll be adding, like GD&T, some design techniques, some things like that assist students if they were to go on a co-op term. We'll also have standards case studies, things like how to standardize an item or method, or dealing with some of the problems that'll be encountered during standardization, because knowing how to read the standard and being familiar with one is one case, but using it is a completely different thing. And we think it's very important to extend the learning of standards to that as well. There'll also be ideas clinic project documentation. This is critical in the fact that students or co-ops who are researching the information for the wiki may not come across some of the things you'd find in a real project like the other co-ops are doing currently this term. It'll give students a real world picture of what the wiki concepts look like when applied to a project and any other additional info or techniques they discover. And adding this documentation onto the wiki will allow students who didn't do these projects to benefit from that learning as well. In addition to that, we also have some Excel design tools in the future. So things like fastener loading calculators, gear design tools, anything like that to make engineering a little bit easier for co-op students. So I'll run you through some page examples very quick. So this is just the excerpt of the front page of standards. So just a quick preface before the page starts. That gives students a rundown of what they need to know before they start to learn about standards, as well as just a table of contents. The wiki is really good in the fact that everything is indexed perfectly, so you can find specifically the information you're looking for on the page through the table of contents, and there's often interactivity like GIFs or tools like that that you can click on to allow engagement to increase. We also have here a quick excerpt of the bearings page. So this is the front page of the bearings. You can see a little bit about the characteristics of bearings. It's a little bit snippet there. And then finally, a snippet of the What is Bridges section from the Civil Enviro GeoWiki. So thank you for listening. We're just about done our slot of time. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we can